Peace, peace, peace. What's good? What's good? What's good, everybody? What's good? What's good? Grand Rising Kings and Queens, Grand Rising Kings and Queen. What is really happening? What is really good? Listen, like, share, subscribe, and donate. Share. Pass the words on. Pass the words on. This is going to be an exciting go round. And I'm going to explain a couple of things about the hip hop jams and the regular jams. All right, so let's jump right straight directly into it. I'm going to directly straight into it. I'm going to dive. Okay, so one of the things that we have to make the difference and change is that a lot of times people confuse a jam, hip hop jam, or a block party. They get them mixed up. And so the jam is totally different than a hip hop jam. And a lot of people know that the difference between a regular jam and a park jam is totally different as well. And so let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So in the 60s, there were block parties. And at these block parties, I'm sure everybody had a block party. And at this block party, it was mainly the people on the block and families. So families would come together, and Aunt Martha would bring the potato salad. Somebody else would, Christine or somebody would bring the macaroni and cheese, and Aunt Ethel would bring the greens, the collard greens, and all of that stuff. And if you were lucky, someone would have a radio or a tape player, and if you were close to someone's house, you'd run the extension cord from their house, a couple of extension cords, because it was very rare for someone to have like 100-foot extension cord. So you would run a couple of extension cords together, and you would bring your set out, your record player, and a speaker outside, and the kids would play, and we'd run around. And if you were on a block that had a sprinkler, had a hydrant, you'd open up the hydrant, and the kids would play. And it would be just this one day that the whole block came together. And of course, once the block comes together, people from other blocks come and join in. It was a little bit different for us in Bronxdale. In the 60s in Bronxdale, we didn't really have a chance to do the actual block party. It was very rare for us to be outside and and have a block party, so because Bronxdale, if anybody knows about Bronxdale, is made up in three sections. And so each street, if you have a building, now don't get me wrong, don't think that we didn't come downstairs, someone would be downstairs in front of the building or something, and we would join together or sit on the benches and do something together. We would do that. But as far as having a block party, that wasn't really a thing, and still to this day, that it's very, very rare for someone to be on the street to have a block party. I think Rosedale, Soundview, Beach Avenue. Those are the streets that a block party act. Rosedale, like I said, and those are the actual streets that you can actually have the cross street that goes through. Because St. Lawrence is that's the Bronxdale is the dead end of St. Lawrence. Beach Avenue goes from Watson to Bruckner Boulevard, and Soundview and Rosedale goes across Bruckner Boulevard all the way up to 174th and everything. So anyway, so it was very rare for us to have block parties. Okay, so now in the 70s, when Mario did come out, because Mario, and this is another thing that I have to explain, with Mario, he was able to bring music outside in front of the building. I was just talking to a friend about it, how when we played in front of 1740, I think it was, he took we broke the window on the ramp, because the ramp is actually our boiler room, and we took a extension cord and a couple of extension cords, and we ran it downstairs in the boiler room, and that's how we got the power to the out. Any other time, it would be out of someone's apartment. So those times, like in the 60s, those things were, like I said, considered block parties. And the difference between the hip hop jam is exactly that. What is a hip hop jam? So a block party, the music that is played at a block party is a music basically for everybody. Okay, you would have whatever was out, whatever was considered cool to play, you know, from everybody from James Brown, Otis Redding, the Temptations, just anybody that was like back in those days, the Blackbirds, just anybody that had a good sound to it. And so that's where the difference between the jam and the hip hop jam came out. So now, like I said, this is pre hip hop. So let's get that straight. This is pre hip hop. Now, what kills me, and I hate to say what kills me, but what bothers me is that a lot of these people that say there's so much that they did so much for hip hop, and they were at so many places and everything, a lot of them are not reoccurring what happened before hip hop that made the difference of hip hop. A lot of people are not saying that. What made the difference? What made it be from jams to made it to be hip hop? And that's the part that people are not really digesting. They're just saying that, oh, it's just this and that's it. So yes, people were bringing music outside early 70s. early. They were bringing music outside, but that's all it was. It had nothing to do with hip hop. It had nothing to do with the style of dress. It had nothing to do with the MC, and it had nothing to do with the records that was being chosen. It had nothing to do with the dance. It was just a party outside. That's all it was a party outside. So when it became hip hop and it became the jam in hip hop, that's when the whole thing came together. Okay, so in a lot of my earlier videos, I explained where I consider the first hip hop jam. Um, and so the first hip hop jam for me was 1970, not 71, 70. And this is when there was a festival at what is now, I think it's Cablevision or something, on Bruckner and Rosedale. This was a school, it was a bowling alley, it was Skating Palace. There's a big lot there, and there was a festival there. And I don't know, to this day, I never know how Mario did it, but Mario was a part of this festival. And he had some speakers, and I'm not going to tell you where he got the speakers from, but he had these brown speakers. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, he had some brown speakers, and he had those were record players, and Gerard record players, and so he was providing the music at this festival, as this carnival. He was providing the music. And so how I got involved was that I had, of course, I had these stacks of James Brown records, and I had a couple of other records. Now, I'll admit that back then there was no stopping the record, and that wasn't happening. Okay, so we had to let the whole record go through. And so one record would come on, and then the next record would come on, and then so on and so on. There was no mixing, there was no scratching, there was no lifting up the needle, there was no none of that. It was just straight. And not only did we have to play we had to play Pink music, and all you guys know when I say Pink. All right, so we had to play that kind of music too. Um, and so playing those different musics, and Lester and Mark and little Steve and little, we were just wanting to play these just a little part of it, but we couldn't do that. And then plus, like I said, Mario, I don't know how he got down. I don't know if he was paid to do it or whatever, and so he had to play a list of records that the people that put it together wanted him to play. Okay, so that to me, because we got a chance to play those records, though that to me was like the first hip hop jam to me. The second jam, hip hop jam, was actually the Big Park. That was Rosedale. Now, in between there in 1970, um, the carriage room, which is a room in each building. It's that where you're supposed to be able to store stuff. That's what the carriage room is. If you back in those days, carriages were big. They were like little cars, and so you could put your bikes in there, or you could put a baby carriage, or other people used to store stuff. So that was the carriage room, for those that don't know what the carriage room is. And of course, I used to play my drums in the carriage room because my dad had to sleep during the day, and my mom's went to work, during the day, and my dad went to work at night, and so they didn't want me banging the drums inside of the house, so they put me in the carriage room, and one day, because Mario was playing, I think, in his carriage room. And so I was in 1055, which is Andre Harrell's building. And one day he came through, and see, the window for the carriage room is right there. It's like once you're coming into the building, it's right there on the side. And so he heard me banging, banging, and everything. And then he heard me playing the record. And so what I was doing was I was taking the record, getting to the drum part, playing that drum part, da, 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 and then go back to the record and pull it back a little bit before the drum part, and then play. So Mario was walking through the building, and he said to me, what, Booby, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? And so I told him, I said, listen, I don't remember what I said, but it was something in the fact of, I can't run back and forth. Could you do it? And so he did it. He actually, I didn't have to leave the drum set. He would put it to that part, and then he would bring it back, and I'd play it again, and then he would put it that part and put it again, play it again. So at that point, because he had known, that I was like this drummer, and I played for 47. I played for 125. I played all of these places. I played on Broadway and stuff. So he already knew that I was a drummer, and he also knew that I had a mini bike, and I had a Schwinn bike, and so that's how, and I was one of the kids. I was one of the kids from 1055. So anyway, at that point, it was like I had these records. And if anybody knows Mario, he had all of the South records, like a lot, probably before they even reached New York. He had a lot of South records, and James Brown, of course, being one of them. And so he liked, for me to have these records. So after that passed, he was doing a party. I can't remember for her name, but she was in the building across from the playground. And so he came, he knocked on the door, and he asked my mom's, if I could come over to the party and bring those records that I had. And of course, I got a chance to see some bigger, older kids doing some stuff. So I ran in the back, and I grabbed these records. And of course, when I get there, there's really no one that's my age to play. So the little sister of the person that was having the party, she had a couple of her friends there and a couple of the boys. So we went over there. I remember Mark from my building went over there, and we went over there, and I was giving them records to play. So now, like at this point, like I said, this is into 71 now. This is going on to 71. So he played somebody said, what about Stax records like Green Onions? Yes. Yes, love it. And all kinds of Stax. Stax had it going on back in the 70s and 60s. So I had these records, the blue Stax or the green Stax, light blue label or the green one, and then they came out with the yellow with the brown label. But anyway, so playing these records, every time like we had like this little party or whatever, it became like something good. It was like, now I'm developing little I can't call it a crew at that time. It was just I'm getting more friends that are more interested in what we're doing, what the music that we're doing. And so as time went by, I was getting a little bit known for having these records that people can really just boogie joogie with, like really go off on. And so, like I said, and this is another thing that I gotta explain to people. People think that Mario didn't have equipment in the beginning, which is not true. It's not true. And the reason why people say that he bought a professional system is because in the beginning days, if Mario had two speakers and someone else had two speakers and someone else had like a tweeter something or something, then combined it would be a system. And that's what people don't get. People just say, because they hear this a lot of talk and everything about what Mario got his equipment and Cool D had his equipment. And when by the time Cool D came, Mario was already building up a system. And one thing that I can definitely say, without a doubt, is that when my dad had a very popular bar downtown in Manhattan, Harlem. And so what they did was they got a new system. So when Mario, I mean, when they took the old system and of course brought it to my house, and so it was my system. And so we had two big Altec speakers. I think at the time they were 12-inch. They might have been 12-inch. They weren't 15s. They were 12-inch, but they were big, and they had tubes inside of them. That's so anybody that knows about Altec, when they talk about um, the amplified speakers, those were them, and they would come in a wood case, and they had like a cloth tweeted cover on the front. And so those alone were loud. They were loud. So when we did finally be able to piece together a good system, this is what people don't get. Like, Mario was coming out in front of the building way before, coming out to the parks. And we even did another thing, right on in the first, I mean, not in the first section, in the second section that people don't even talk about. But that was another building event, the building facing that was right close to where the center is now, where the center is in the second section. That building across there, there's a parking lot there, and there used to be a basketball court there, and we played that day. Mario played there, and so now that's going back to what that was. At that point, it still wasn't the hip hop jam yet. It was just playing these music. July 7th, July 7th, it was hot. It was hot. Everybody in the project was outside. And if you guys remember, in Bronxdale, we only had the two windows that went out, and we had a one window that came in like that. Okay. And so There was no air conditioners. No, we had the square fan. Some of us had a round fan, but most of us had the square fan, and that all it did was push hot air all over. So the best thing we could do was go outside, and so we were all sitting on the bench and everything. And so at this time, we couldn't, there's nothing we could do. And housing, let me get this straight, housing, we had police officers, and so we couldn't just do anything, in the projects. We couldn't get step on the grass in 70 and 71. We couldn't step on the grass. You get a ticket if you step on the grass. And they had these chain link chains, so you couldn't get in the grass. We couldn't have no animals. We couldn't have no dogs and everything. So that's, that was out. So they didn't, you couldn't have your dog, take your dog in the thing. The only thing that we did have was called the free grass. Now, the free grass is between the first section and the second section. If anybody's from Bronxdale, they'll know that that was called the free grass. Okay, so at this point, like I said, with this pieced up together system, really we couldn't take this in Bronxdale and really, he could play it in front of his building a little bit, but at a certain time, that's it. If the cops come, you gotta turn it off and everything. And because back then, and like I said, in 70 and 71, there were a lot of pink people in the building, and they didn't want to hear our type of music at all. So they'll call the cops on you in a minute. So all of those people that say that, oh no, the jail, no, 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 it wasn't that. So at that moment, Mario had the bright idea to go to Rosedale Park. All right, this is Rosedale Park. Now, when we got to Rosedale Park, it was like a free reign. The first time he didn't have a permit. The first time Mario did not have a permit. Matter of fact, a long time after jamming in this park, it was no permits. He didn't have no permits. And so he actually went over there, and when we first got over there, because he said, I'll never forget, he sent me and I think Andre and someone else and Jeffrey to go and run and see if there was a test plug at. That's why people like don't get it. There's a reason why it was set up near in the baseball field where the pitcher's mound would be. That's why, because that's the first light pole that had the test plug. Okay, so he set up over there, and within seconds of turning the music on, people were coming out of the house. Because remember, like I said, this was one of the hottest days. You can look it up. This was one of the hottest days in Bronx history. And so the ice cream truck came, and it came, and people started coming. So now people were coming from the first section, people were coming from the second section, people were coming from the third section. Now at that point, I'm not gonna lie, the music wasn't expanding, but because the row of houses were there and across the street was a lot and the Volkswagen place, the music did get a chance to echo and go out a little bit farther. Now, why I call that the first jam, hip hop jam, is because yes, we were able to play the record, take the needle, and put it back to the thing, or which I told you guys, I'm not going to tell you the exact trick of how we did it. We would take the record, if we had the two of the same records, pick it up, and then play the other record and play. And so at that point, that's when the first hip hop jam that I can recall in 71 happened. Um, People were, there were, the kids, a lot of the kids, because the kids came first. Let's get that straight. Kids came first before the teenagers. Kids came first because we followed Mario. We just we couldn't wait. And also, this is something too. So he got us to go get the carts, and this is why anybody that ever been to Pathmark, they put the bars there so you wasn't able to take the shopping cart out. But before that, we were able to take the shopping cart out of there and go. So we grabbed like 2 or 3 shopping carts from Pathmark, and we were able to take the stuff, the records and everything in the shopping carts to Rosedale. So anybody that remembers the jam in 71 can tell you that that's exactly how it happened. That's how we got the music there and everything. So we were able to now put these records back and do that. And so that became something that we were doing. So by the time the teenagers did get there, we're dancing on the floor. We're like, we're spinning around and doing the helicopter and all of that on the floor. So when the teenagers did come, because like I said, they were coming, and adults too. When they did come, they were like amazed to see us on the floor doing these karate moves and flips and stuff like that, and to the beat. So people like God rest his soul, Black Willie, not Blackjack. I don't know if Blackjack was there at that time, but I do remember Black Willie. I remember just so many of the Big George, and all of these Jeffrey and all of those, and Desi and all of them were coming and were being there. And so at that time, I'll never forget, because this is another thing. The only reason that we stopped playing, Mario stopped playing that day, is because we ran out of records to play. And this is the God honest truth. We ran out of records to play, and that's why we ended. We could have went the whole night. We could have rocked the whole entire night. And another thing was, back then there was some lights, but it got dark. It used to really get dark. And so just getting and we had to come back the next day, and somebody, we might have left a wire out or whatever. And so the kids, most of us little kids, had to get home before it was dark. Because you remember, we were little kids, and that was the saying back then: you better beat those lights. They better beat the street lights to get home. If you don't beat those street lights, then you gonna get that ass whipped. And so a lot of us had to actually get home before they. But anyway, it ended right after, we left, not too long after we left. But that was the first hip hop jam. It wasn't just a regular jam. It was a hip hop jam. Okay. So now it's a thing. Now this is a thing. So now everybody's waiting for the next jam. So this is why I say that a lot of the so-called pioneers, or whoever you want to call them, the people that say that they were there, if they can't tell you about these three events, then maybe they really wasn't there. The next event, and this is what I tell everybody, and I'll find out if you really were there if I tell you about this one. The next part, the next jam was at the Lollipop. Okay. So now the first section lollipop, because there's actually two lollipops. There's one in the first section and there's one in the second and the third section. So well, the one in the third section is really not a lollipop. Well, it was before, but it's or whatever. Anyway, so we were in the lollipop this time. Now, in the lollipop, it became, how can I say, like it became this, ooh man, it became like it was really starting to be something. It was starting to be like that's all we came for, was to be able to play these breaks and the dance and to burn each other, and older kids now were burning, and stuff. And so that became like the whole unit of what we were doing. Now, let me go back a little bit further. The reason why MCing came about was because on the microphone we were not talking about like rhyming. We were not doing that. Hold on, I gotta answer this. I couldn't believe Carol Russ says Flash invented the crossfader. DJD. Well, yes, definitely. That's a whole nother story. Yeah, last night in a live, he apologized for lying on Phase. Wow. Wow, that's cool. That's righteous. That's really cool. All right, I guess I gotta watch that part. But okay, but anyway, like I was saying, so at that point in the lollipop, that's, I wanna say, that was the first time that the microphone was added for public people to see. See, because we were on the microphone just from in the apartment, and because we used to put the speaker out the window. But this was the first public time that the microphone was actually introduced to what is called, this hip hop thing. And so I'll never forget it. Like I'll never forget that was, that was the time where Mike Mario got on the mic and he was saying mercy, and and he was saying, and he'll say my name, or he'll say somebody else, Spanky's name, or somebody, Sinbad's name or something. And that right there became like the real time that people really wanted to get on the mic. Like, people didn't really want to get on the mic before that, but they wanted to get on the mic because they wanted to say their name on the mic, or they wanted to, say somebody else's name on the mic. And I'll never forget, people were actually trying to come and get on the mic, and Mario might give them the mic or whatever, and then they say that, and then they'll scream their name or whatever, and then, oh God. And so that was, and this is 1971. So that was the time where the microphone was introduced to hip hop. Now, like I said, In the jams, the other jams, they might have said something, on the microphone or whatever, but I basically don't remember that. I don't remember somebody actually saying something with the music. Now, if you say something before that or before the music was going, that's cool too. But I don't really remember them saying it to the music. And so now, remember, so now we have the turntables, we have somebody on the mic, and we have someone dancing. And this is just dancing. Now, in 71, to be honest, you wore what you wore. Like you at that jam, at the lollipop jam, you wore what you wore. It wasn't, we were not dressing for any occasion or whatever. And like I said, back then, and this is another thing that I must admit and say why I know that a lot of the people that talk about, just like they talk about flyers and they talk about how this happened and where the first thing was. Each one of those jams that I'm talking about now, we didn't know nothing about it happening. We never planned it. Mario never planned it. It was nothing planned. It happened that day. The day that it said was going to come outside is the day it happened. So there was no way that there could have been a flyer. There's no way to say that we were going to come out next week, or nothing. There was no way of that. So all of those people that lie and say that there were flyers for these jams, they're lying. They're lying. I cannot remember in the 70s, early 70s, a flyer for anything. Like, I really don't. The most I could remember is an invitation for a party that was indoors. It was an invitation. It wasn't a flyer. It was an invitation. And like I said, these things that came about. They came about right on the back, right. Just okay. Bring the equipment outside. And that's what happened. So all of those people, these exhibitors or whatever, and say that this guy was on the flyer early and everything. No, that's just wrong. That's just lie. I'm be honest. And those people basically were not there in the beginning. They were not. Second thing about these flyers, the real gangsters and the real people that was really involved, they might have been a dancer, or they might have been, a MC or whatever. Because there was few DJs, because back then people didn't have equipment. They didn't have equipment. They had record players, and if you were young, your parents were not going to let you bring this record player outside. That's number one. So the thing about it is, if you're a gangster, right? If you're a real gangster, you don't even want people to know you're at this certain place at this certain time. Like, that's just it, And so if you put a name on a flyer and people know you're going to be there, that's, the police. The police is going to see it, because this is one thing that people don't understand. One person will tell another person, and that person might not know that they telling the police that, or they telling the person that is after you that, or the person you want. So all of that being on the flyer stuff for the real gangsters, for the real people that was doing these things and putting up money to do stuff, their name's not on the flyer. and they are the original. They're the originators. So that fly, and then like I said, flyers came way later. By the time flyers came into the hip hop scene, for most of us, it wasn't even about it. That it really wasn't. And like I said, there was a certain group of people that kind of messed up breakdancing, for us. And that's I'm just keeping it real, and so the breakdancing part and not only that, um breakdancing, and I'm just gonna keep it 100. Breakdancing is for kids. That's just it, when you start being a teenager and you start breakdancing, to us, to the originators, that's not cool. It really wasn't. It wasn't cool to breakdance when you're, 15, 16, 17 years old. That's you're really close to adult. And like I said, break dancing was a kid thing, like a young kid thing. So that's why it bothers me when people say, and which people don't know, but people say, FaZe was too young to do this or FaZe to do that. No, no, no. In Bronxdale, we were all real young when we were doing things that grown-ups were doing, real young. And Bronxdale can contest to that. Bronxdale can actually say, yes, if you ask anybody from Bronxdale that was back in those days, they'll tell you, yep, they little rascals, them little kids was doing so much back in those days. So those people that don't understand how we did these things or whatever, those are the people that never were that young when they did it. And that's why it's so true how they said that, that the kids were breakdancing and the grown-ups were burning, the and not grown-ups, but the older kids were burning, because like I said, the older kids are more into, showing, if they dance against each other, if a male dance against a male, he burning that male. He's showing a move. He's showing a move that the other dude might can't do. So he's burning him. He's not breakdancing on him. He's burning him. And then so after he walks away, everybody say, yo, he burnt him. He burnt you. He burnt you. And that's the difference, When you're a teenager, you want to get that girl. That's the main thing. You want to walk off with that girl, holding that girl's hand or hugging her or whatever, and dancing with them, real close and everything. So that was for the teenagers. Now, imagine, like I said on the other video, imagine you flipping around doing all of that stuff and you with a girl. So the girl's going to look at you like you crazy. So that's another thing that it gets me and shows the difference of the people that created and the people that were guests. Okay, and that's just pure how it is. You were a guest. If you are a teenager, especially an older teenager, and you breakdancing, by the time hip hop was whatever, and you breakdancing, hip hop for us, the creators, was almost finished. It was done. Another thing is when you say hip hop jam, right? The difference of, like I said, I showed you a little bit of what the difference was, but if you till today, if you go to a party or something or a place, you're playing music that the people can dance to. Okay, in the creation of hip hop, a lot of people really didn't know how to dance to these breaks. Like they knew they had a couple of moves or whatever, and you might be maybe could do the couple of moves. But think about it: the dances, the bus stop, and all of those, the chicken, funky penguin, all of those dances are done to the whole record, and each one goes to the whole record, right? Break dancing had nothing to do with the whole record. It was all about the break. So, going into this break, that's what made it hip hop. And so the regular jam, you're doing the dances of the day. I never forget when the bus stop came out, the funky chicken came out, the bump came out. Now the bump, think about it. You didn't have to wait for the middle of the record or anything to do the bump. You doing the bump the whole time. You doing that the whole time, the whole record, the entire record. You're doing the bump. Same with the bus stop. The whole record, you doing the bus stop. And so that's the difference, people. That's the difference between breakdancing, hip hop jam, and having a regular jam. Okay. So now I told you the musical part of it, and I told you the MC part of it, and the dancing part of it. But there's another part of it. There's another part of the hip hop jam that this is DJ Faze explains the hip hop jams of the 70s, and then there'll be a part two of just that. And I'll explain the other parts of what made it a hip hop jam. Okay, so like I do on every session, because I'm not going to go past an hour this time. I like to give some shout outs. Shout out to China Black. Definitely shout out to Riri, who's my moderator. Definitely nothing but love. A first class citizen comes in all the time, and nothing but peace family. Ill One always comes in with some valuable information. Ill 110. He was talking about green onions on stacks. Go gadget go comes in. Thank you for coming in. And listen, guys, listen. Like I said before, um, you know, it's actually it's how can I put it? I want you guys to come in and everything, and I do, but please listen. If this is something that not only entertains you, but it gives you a lot of knowledge and wisdom, please like, share, donate, and it's just like come on, guys, like come on, like hit those subscribe buttons and do it. Let's go in. Akeem 700 piece together system. Right, that's what we did. We pieced together systems, and that's what happened. Wayman Casey 1988, did Mario have the crossfader? Well, yes, he had one later. He had an up and down earlier than that later, but before that, he had something else, and I'll tell you that maybe on two. I'm not as old as Faze, but hey, what you trying to say? Hey, what you talking about? I'm not as old as Faze, but I can tell you, as a New York cat, he's telling the truth. This is why I levitated to this channel. Yes, peace, ill one, peace. Yes. I'm only going to tell the truth. I don't need to say anything other than the truth, because the truth is the actual creation. And if it wasn't for the creation, there wouldn't even be no hip hop. There wouldn't even, everybody talks all of this stuff, but there wouldn't even be no hip hop hop if it wasn't for what we were doing. Okay. It says, what year was that 71? I don't know what year was what? Was the first jam or what year? I don't know. First class citizen. Give me another comment and explain to what you mean, what your question was about first year. Peace, phase, yes, peace. JG11 U3X, definitely. Okay, and he tells me Derek Cologne apologized to you last night in his live. Wow. Wow. That's big. I don't watch him anymore. I don't watch him anymore. So I don't know what he was doing. But if he did that, then that's amazing. That's amazing. Wayman Casey says, so DJ Faze was picking up the needle at this point. Yes. Yes, and that's the only way that you can go back to the beginning of the record or to the middle of the record. That's the only way, because number one thing is that um, it was automatic. And if you know anything about record players, on the side of it where the speed control is, it says auto reject, and that means that you pull it and the next record will come down. So the arm of the record goes to the end, and then it lifts up, it comes back to the beginning, the next record will fall down, and then the needle will go back to the thing. So before it gets to that point where it goes back, you have to pick up the needle and bring it, because you can't go too far this way and you can't go too far that way before the arm will eject and the next record will fall down. So yes, that's what I was doing. I was picking up the needle way back then, because that's the only way to get that record to go into that thing. L1. Yes, last night in his live, he apologized for lying on Phase. Wow. Okay. I couldn't believe KRS said Flash invented the crossfader. DJD had one before. Yes. Yes, yes. But like I said, a lot of these people came into hip hop way after, because you got to remember, this is something that's so important to people. When we were doing hip hop, when we were bringing these different things and coming into it, older teenagers and definitely adults thought that we were crazy, thought that it sounded stupid, thought that what we were doing was the most idiotic thing to do. And why would you buy a record and only play a certain part of the record? That's what it was said. And I mean, these big DJs that now say that they were a part of hip hop are liars. They're 100% liars, because when we first got doing hip hop, all those DJs that said they were doing it is lying, because they didn't want no part of the stupid thing that they called us doing. Okay, so they're liars. And I'll tell them to their face. Any one of those DJs, you tell them to call DJ Faze, because I know them all. And you tell them to call, and you ask DJ Faze if they ever was there and what they did. And I'll tell you straight up, no, they did not. Okay. S-Class Hero Rank 1 spontaneous. Yes, the jams were spontaneous. There were no flyers. If you said you had a flyer for something, you're a liar. Just straight up, you're a liar. And it's so funny that you bring that up about being spontaneous. That's one of the things that I argue with the person that says, because I will never bring up his name. That's one of the things that show that you were not even there, because you would definitely know that none of the creation jams, none of the creation jams were planned. None of them. Not one. Not one was even planned for the next day. Not one. That might have happened maybe once or twice. We'll say, okay, we're going to bring out the music tomorrow. It might have been on a Thursday, and we said, okay, we're going to bring it out on Friday, or it might have been a Friday and said we're going to bring it out on a Saturday. So that's all that talking about. Oh no, they knew that this was going to be a jam, and that's bullshit. That's bull. And also how people found out about it. Now that's even more crazy, and I'll tell you that on part two. Okay, back to the comments. What? Oh, much time. Oh God. Okay, I'm running out of time. All right. I don't understand a grown up flipping on the ground, messing up their clothes. Yep, never happened. If you had on shark skins, or you had on gabardines, or you had on AJs or overlaps, or knits or whatever, no, you're not gonna do that. If you had on marshmallows, if you had on rips, if you had on Playboys, if you had on British Walkers, you ain't gonna scuff them up. You ain't gonna get them on the thing. If you had a mock neck, if you had a V-neck, if you had a suede neck, you're not gonna to spin on that. You're not gonna do none of that with those clothes on. Okay, so all of those people that said that they were dressed up and they were doing that, you're not doing. And I'm gonna be honest. This is something that I can attest to. From 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, and maybe 75 is when we were doing the stuff. We were. 76, when disco music came in, it changed. On two, I'm gonna tell you what our sampling was, okay, because people think that sampling came, it technically came before, but I mean after, but sampling was exactly what we were doing. Now I'll say that in two. Hopefully I'll do two tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. First class citizen facts, 100%, and didn't want to mess up our threads, not at all. Yes, classic or early 70s is Black American dance styles. What year was July 7th? That was in 1971. July 7th was 1971. JD Vidya Shield says Cologne should be apologizing to the entire Black American community with all the BS he's been putting out. And he has been extremely dishonest even when he knows he was wrong. Well, Dr. Columbus actually is a genius. He is. And I said this to him before. When Dr. Columbus came out, right, he mentioned me. He mentioned me. And from that point, they knew who he was because they wanted to see what he was talking about me about. That was a genius move. So from that point, they say bad publicity is always good publicity. Any publicity is good publicity, and that's what he did. He mentioned my name on the thing, and that's how he got it. That's how people knew who he was. That's because he mentioned me and started. And so that was genius. He said what he said, and now people know his name. I call him Dr. Columbus because he definitely got known just for that. And a lot of them do that. a lot of them say stuff, stupid stuff or lies or whatever about me because the person is actually comment back to them, and then that person's name will be known. That's why so many of them, the minions I call them, they change their names. They change their names because, you know, if you block them, you could believe that they're gonna watch. They're gonna listen to the information. They're gonna be able to say something. They're gonna do that. So they watch every single thing. I I had to learn to stop, like the guy, you know who I'm talking about, the C guy, right? Uh, he just was arguing and saying old phase is lying and everything, and then when the people that he was saying was came on my channel and said, "Yo, you wasn't there. Booby was there." Then all of a sudden he goes to the guy and says, "Oh man, you shouldn't have did that. I thought we were boys," and all of that. And so the person told him, "We might be boys, but he was my boy first. Like, I know him way before I know you." And so it cracked me up, you know, because if you guys remember, I was on my way. I jumped in my truck and I was on my way. And my sensei and young black Jack and everybody was stopping me. It's, yo, don't, Booby, don't go. Do not do that. No, you're gonna go to jail and you're gonna be messed up and all of that. So you got too much to lose. Do not go up there and do something to that, but lay hands and feet on that brother. And so I had to, you know, at that point, I had really passed no return, but I came to my senses and I didn't. Okay, so listen, we're out of time. So please, please, please like, share, subscribe, and donate. And let's see. Now, you know what? I see a lot of people in here. Okay. And I'm looking at you guys. I'm looking at you guys, and I see that the donation cash app is there. So I'm gonna take a screenshot of all of you that's in here and commenting and like and knowing and listening and whatever, and I'm gonna see. Today I am gonna see who dropped something into that cash app. Okay. One of the guys told me to do another Wave, Venmo, and stuff like that. All you people that need another way to do it, go to my Instagram, send me a message. I'm the real DJ Phase in Instagram, and you send me a message and we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. So don't think that that's the no. We'll make it happen. Go to me on the real DJ Phase, and we'll make it happen. Okay. Cool INT. Continue stand on these culture vultures next phase. Thank you. Yes, I will. And like I told you guys, I told all of my people, I told you, I said for 2026. All you vultures, all you liars, all you scam artists, all you just vultures, you're in. This is it. No more. You're not going into 2027 without being exposed. You're going to be exposed. I'm exposing you. Nothing you can do about it. You're going to get exposed. All right. So you guys, I love you guys. Wow, there's so many more comments, but I'll look at the comments later on. But and I'll bring them up on. I'll take a screenshot, like I said, and I'll bring them up on part two. And you guys, like, share, subscribe, and donut. I'm DJ Phase, and I'm out.